Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for clicking on the video. We're back out again in my local forest, and the plan is to try the hammock again with the dog. Instead of the inflatable sleeping pad, I've got an underblanket this time to see what difference that makes. Temperature wise it was okay last time when we were out in Glen Affric from the second weekend of the February challenge. But because there was two of us in the hammock, we were kind of pushing the mat either side through the night, which was a little bit uncomfortable. So hopefully the underblanket, because it's surrounding us, we won't have that issue. As you can see, the weather's still slightly cool. We've had snow on and off all this week. There's still a little bit of snow hanging on, but it's been cool. Some hard frosts in the morning, and you know, that's not unusual for this time of year. It's usually referred to as the lambing snow anyway, so it's almost certain we'll get something at this time. But I think because it's been quite an unusual winter, it's been quite mild, wet and then really dry at times with no snow, and then 18 degrees at the end of March, start of April. It does feel like things are dragging on a little bit when we come back to this kind of weather. But yeah, we'll get set up and see how we get on with this under blanket. I've got some good food to cook up as always, and at the end of the video I'm going to do some basic tree ID, so if that interests you as well, then stick around. But we'll get moving, get a tarp up and see how we get on. Right, so before I start getting set up, I thought I would do a bit of a run through of the gear that I brought with me. It seems to interest quite a lot of people, and to be honest, I'm the same sometimes. It's just interesting to see how people think of what they bring. But this is, I mean, it was a very short walk in. I've got quite a lot of heavy, bulky stuff. I don't tend to have a lot of, you know, super ultralight stuff anyway, because I can't afford it, to be honest. But I've been slowly trying to get better and better gear. But like I say, not much thought gone into this trip because I wasn't walking far. But I'll start with the backpack. So this is an Osprey Ether 70 litre. I've had it for about 4 years now. It's been all over the place with me, including hiking other countries, and it's been brilliant. It's not the lightest pack on its own, but I find it incredibly comfortable, especially with a heavy load walking, you know, a considerable distance. But yeah, we'll get into the pack and I'll show you what I've got. I've just got the DD Hammocks Frontline Hammock XL, my Petromax heavy base pan. On the side I've just got my small hatchet, and an algae with a litre of water. I've got my silky Gomtaro saw. I've got a clean canteen stainless steel container with a litre of water, and I've also got just a small container of milk, because I'll be honest, I like milk in my coffee. I'm not hardcore black coffee. In these kind of waist pockets I've got, I won't get everything out, but I've got a Israeli bandage, especially if I'm using the axe and things. And then I've got some dog biscuits in there, head torch, and a small wooden spoon, and my titanium spork. In the top lid I've just got a basic toiletries kit, toilet roll, and first aid kit. And in the second pouch in the top, I've just got, my fire kit, my bushcraft store boar knife, which I'll put on my belt now I'm here. A pair of Helicontex gloves, which I used them quite a bit this winter and they basically burst, so I will need to get a new pair of them. Fire steel, and in the bulk of the pack I've got just an extra fleece, DD 3x3 ultralight tarp, a big old bag of food. This is the new underblanket that I bought. It's not that heavy, but you know, it is a bulky little thing, and I do wonder about hammock camping sometimes, because there are quite a few components to it if you want a comfortable night, especially outside of the summer. Dog food for tonight and the morning, just some extra batteries and things for the camera and stuff. Trangia kettle, I usually just keep my coffee bag inside the kettle. A cup. This is just I suppose a possibles pouch, if you want to call it that. Just a hidden Woodsman pouch. I've got everything from DC4 sharpening stone to paracord to a wee LED lamp and bits and pieces. Dog bowl, wood stove, a lightweight grill, chopping board. I've got this mat for the stove. I get asked about this quite a lot actually. It's definitely not my idea, but it's just a soldering mat, so you can have the wood stove on it and this doesn't burn, but it also protects the ground. Just a piece of leather mat for doing bits and pieces. A Brown's Bushcraft waxed cotton ground mat. Whiskey to go with the steak. And that's pretty much it, apart from my sleeping bag just sits in the bottom. So I've got my Snugpak Softy Elite 3 with a Sea to Summit liner and just a pillowcase all inside here. I just keep it all together because it's easier. And that is everything. So we're pretty much set up, just the same as I did before out in Africa. Same setup. Well, I've raised both corners of the tarp up this time. Going to put the underblanket on now. There are carabiners all the way around, so I guess it's just a case of clipping them on. However, I'm not seeing obvious places to actually clip it on to. So I'll get it out and have a look, and we'll figure something out. I've had a look, and I've got it attached, but it doesn't really look right. Yeah, like I say, there's not obvious attachment points that I can see. So I think what I might do is actually slide it in underneath. That might be what I'm supposed to do. And there's still space for the carabiners to come out and attach them so it doesn't move inside. So I'll maybe try that and see how we get on. No, that can't be it, because I forgot there's only one opening to slide something in, you know, so I can't take the carabiners out the other side. So yeah, I'll have to think again. Usually when you see these hammock setups, you see the underblanket around the outside, but it just doesn't seem to quite fit properly around it, you know. So it looks a bit odd, and I'm still not sure it's right, to be honest. But it is, you know, it is covering the sleeping area. But I've essentially just tied the top two carabiners, just attached them here on either side, and then the carabiners coming out the side of it, I've kind of just attached them up onto these loops on the frame here, and we'll see how we get on with that. But yeah, it doesn't fill me with a huge amount of confidence. So I'm relatively happy with it now, I think. Just see how it goes later on tonight. I'll put the sleeping bag in just now, and then it's time for lunch because I'm getting pretty hungry now, and it's nearly 1 o'clock. Like I say, I've got the sleeping bag liner already in here, so should be warm enough tonight, I would think. I'm not too concerned. I don't really have a lot else to do this afternoon. It's 2 o'clock now, so there's plenty of time. I mean, it's not really dark until 8:30, 9 o'clock now. I'd quite like to have a fire, but I'm just not sure because things are still quite dry, even though we had that snow and rain this week. I might have a wander around, see if I can maybe find some rocks, and if I can, I might make a little fireplace, but if not, I might just stick with the bush box just to be safe. But we'll see. Like I say, plenty of time, so yeah, we'll go for a wander and see what we can find. Got it. Well, it's been a very relaxing afternoon. I feel like I haven't really done that much, but got a load of firewood, got this fire pit together, and just been wandering around the woods. It's turned into a really nice day. It's still quite cool. I think it's about 3 or 4 degrees, and when you stop, you know, you can feel it a little bit, but it's nice. It's nice and still. A lot calmer than our last trip, that's for sure. But it's 6:15 now, so I'm going to get the main fire going now, get some coals for the steaks, and cook up the rest of the food as well. Darach's been fed. He's been running about all afternoon, chasing his ball. So yeah, it's just been a nice day. But getting quite hungry now, so I'll get this fire started. can't help myself. I'm tucking into these potatoes because I'm really hungry, but they're nice. Oh, look at that. Yes. Oh, that is delicious. Oh, that was ridiculously good. It's 8 o'clock just now, but yeah, it feels a lot earlier. But just going to get tidied up here a little bit and get the fire going again. Right guys, that's me. It's nearly 10:30, so we're going to call it a night and get in the hammock.
Go on. In you go. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Should we get up there? Go on then.
Morning folks, another nice morning. Had a pretty good sleep last night, to be honest. I can see the benefit of the underblanket. The only slight concern I had is with the attachment points. it made it quite narrow rather than sort of encouraging it to wrap round. And with the dog as well, I found that he was actually kind of sitting in between it and the edge of the hammock, which might not make much sense unless you actually saw it, but I think it's because it's quite a small underblanket. I think for that size of hammock it almost needs to be, you know, a bigger one, just so it can wrap round more. But thanks again for watching. I'll put all the usual links and things in the description if you want to check them out. And yeah, like I said, I'll for the forest thoughts this week, I'm going to do a little bit of tree ID, just basic stuff. I'm going to start with Scots pine and Sitka spruce. But thanks again for watching. I'll put all the usual links and things in the description if you want to check them out. And yeah, like I said, I'll for the forest thoughts this week, I'm going to do a little bit of tree ID, just basic stuff. I'm going to start with Scots pine and Sitka spruce. So if that's of any interest to you, then yeah, please stick around. And if not, then I will see you on the next one. I can feel some heat at the edge here, just on the peat that's surrounding the fire pit. It's pretty damp, but there's quite a bit of heat to it, and it just shows you how easy it can happen. You know, peat can smoulder away for days and days, and kind of travel under the ground and pop up elsewhere. I've just kind of scraped a couple of inches away there, and there's no heat anymore, so I think it was just residual heat from the rock it was sitting next to. But it's important to be aware of these things, especially at this time of year. It's absolutely critical. I'm pretty happy now that that's going to be safe to leave. Hi folks, thanks for sticking around again after the main video. I'm basically going to talk about some basic tree ID for this trip, and the two species I've chosen is Scots pine and Sitka spruce. I'll talk a little bit about both. I'll compare some features of both, and hopefully it'll be useful to some of you that are watching. The reason I've chosen Scots pine and Sitka spruce is I tend to find that these trees get mixed up most commonly, and most of the people that I follow and interact with tend to be in spruce or pine woodlands, so I feel like it's quite important because there's some big differences. So yeah, I'll start talking about both species now, and hopefully you'll find it useful. Okay, so we'll start with Scots pine, Pinus sylvestris. It's one of only 3 native conifer species in the UK. The other 2 species being common juniper and common yew, or English yew. Juniper tends to be more of a shrub-like species, doesn't grow very tall, and yew, you're probably familiar with them, you'll find them in cemeteries quite a lot, and they have those distinctive red berries. So both quite different and distinctive from Scots pine. When I say conifer species, all that means is cone bearing. It produces cones that hold the seed, and all 3 of those species are actually evergreen, which just means that they retain their needles all year round. I'll talk a bit about the bark on the Scots pine. Hopefully the camera's picking it up, but a big giveaway for Scots pine is the reddish tinge that it has to the bark. And as it grows older, I'll turn the camera around here, it can become, quite furrowed looking. But where the bark is thinner further up, and I don't know if this will pick up or not, I'll try and zoom in. It can almost look quite papery, but definitely still retains that reddish tinge. A question I get asked quite a bit online is, what are the granny pines? And granny pine is still a Scots pine, but it's a veteran tree. It could be up to 400 years old, and was considered part of the old Caledonian pine forest. And the Caledonian pine forest is just an ancient forest that used to cover the majority of the Highlands and other parts of Scotland hundreds of years ago now. We've still got some small remnants, but we've lost about 99% of that old native forest. And that's what should cover the majority of Scotland today, is a Scots pine dominated forest. This forest here is not natural in the sense that these Scots pine would have been planted for timber. That's why they're very close together and quite dense. But they can still provide useful habitat for native species. The big hairy trees in front of us are Sitka spruce, Picea sichensis. And Sitka spruce is a non-native conifer species. It originates from northwest America, and it was brought over here over a century ago, almost as a trial to see how a lot of these species grew here to produce a timber crop. And it turns out Sitka spruce was one of the most successful species. It favours our very cool and damp climate, and it grows very well and very quickly. Most of the forest that many people spend their time in, especially in Scotland, will more than likely be made up of Sitka spruce. We planted it in huge blocks back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and we're still dealing with the legacy of that as we fell these crops as they come to a mature age. We're trying to restructure woodlands and not have such vast dense blocks of one species, because when they're grown in a monoculture like that, there's very little benefit to native habitats and wildlife. So hopefully you can see that the Sitka spruce bark is very different to Scots pine bark. It has these platelets on the outside that are quite easy to remove just by hand if you touch them, but that's actually the tree shedding its bark naturally as it grows bigger. But that's very distinctive. If you see a tree with those platelets, then it's almost certainly Sitka spruce, especially in the UK. Just going to have a look at the foliage now, or the needles of each tree. So we've got Scots pine on the left and Sitka spruce on the right, and hopefully you can see that when you see them up close they are considerably different. At a distance, both species can have quite a blue-green tinge to them, which could be a little confusing for some. But I think when you take the shape of the tree into account and the differences in the bark, it starts to become quite obvious which is which. So as you'll see, the Scots pine needles tend to grow in these little clumps. When you look a bit closer, hopefully the camera will pick it up, but each set of needles is in a pair. So you get two, and this would be referred to as a two-needle pine. And there are other species of two-needle pine, but the pine family is kind of broken down into how many needles are growing together. So for example, you would get a 5-needle pine as well. And then the Sitka spruce, quite different. The needles are a lot shorter, a lot more of them, and they grow straight out from the branch itself. And another telltale sign is if you grab them, it should feel quite prickly. And that's one indicator as well. If you have a Norway spruce, which can look quite similar in some ways, if you grab a Norway spruce, you don't get that prickly feeling. So that's kind of a quick, easy telltale, to help you identify what you're looking at. And lastly, I was just going to talk a little bit about the cones. So again, on the left, these are Scots pine cones, if the camera focuses. And these are closed, so it probably doesn't look like what a lot of people think pine cones look like. But once this will open eventually, and it will release the seeds. But it's quite a small, compact cone, and again, quite distinctive when you compare it to the spruce cone. So the spruce cone is longer. It's kind of got these more, kind of almost feathery bracts to them. So So the seed would be inside these two. Yeah, so the Scots pine cone is quite a, it's a hardy, woody cone, and it feels heavier as well. It's denser, whereas the spruce, Sitka spruce cone is quite light. Yeah, feathery, not as hard wearing, if you want to think about it like that. Another, again, the Norway spruce cone can look similar if you don't have a lot of experience, but it's a lot bigger. Norway spruce cones can be really big, and that's going to be your biggest telltale difference between the two. So yeah, that's the cones. Hopefully that's a bit of useful information for some people. I know that was a very brief description of the two, and yeah, not the most detailed, but hopefully it helps people out a little bit. I'll just mention Norway spruce as well, that Norway spruce is quite an important component of forests, northern forests across Europe, especially in Scandinavia. But after the last ice age, it never made it back into the UK, so it's not considered a native part of our forests here. We do have some Norway spruce, they've been planted over the years, and it's usually considered an honorary native in terms of it would have been here, it just ran out of time and didn't quite make it. So yeah, that's Norway spruce. Picea abies. Right guys, that was a very brief rundown on some of the differences between Scots pine and Sitka spruce. Hopefully it was useful to some people watching. If it is, let me know in the comments. I might do some more tree ID stuff. Or if it wasn't, please let me know as well. If you have any further questions, please leave them in the comments, and I'll get to them eventually. But yeah, I think that's it for this video. Thanks again for watching. Check out the links in the description, and we'll see you on the next video.